She was relegated to the plastic chair in the furthest corner of the room when Colonel Marcus Bennett's eyes locked onto her face and froze. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been dismissed as non-essential personnel for the most critical intelligence briefing of the decade. But those same piercing brown eyes staring back at him from the shadows had haunted classified surveillance footage that only 12 people in the entire U.S. government were authorized to view. The footage everyone called the Guadalajara incident. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning fog rolled across the Langley campus like a gray blanket, obscuring the imposing glass structures that housed some of America's most closely guarded secrets. Dr. Elena Vasquez pulled her weathered Honda Civic into the visitor parking lot, double-checking the cryptic email that had arrived at 3:47 a.m. the previous night. The message contained nothing more than coordinates, a time, and a security clearance code she hadn't seen activated in over 3 years. Elena stepped out of her car, adjusting the strap of her worn leather messenger bag across her shoulder. At 34, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned to navigate both boardrooms and back alleys with equal skill. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her professional attire, a navy blazer over dark jeans, struck the careful balance between academic respectability and operational practicality that had become her signature over the years. The morning commute through Northern Virginia had given her time to speculate about the summons. 3 months had passed since her last consultation with any government agency, a routine linguistic analysis for the State Department that had involved translating intercepted communications from a minor drug cartel. The work had been straightforward, unremarkable, and had paid just enough to cover her rent for 2 months, while she continued her legitimate research at Georgetown University. Elena's official title was Associate Professor of Applied Linguistics, with a specialization in Romance languages and regional dialects. Her office in the Intercultural Center overlooked the Potomac River, and her published research focused on the evolution of Spanish dialects in urban environments. Her graduate students knew her as a demanding but fair professor, who insisted on fieldwork and cultural immersion as essential components of linguistic scholarship. What they didn't know was that Elena's fieldwork had occasionally taken her to places that didn't appear on any university-approved research itinerary. The security checkpoint at the main entrance processed her credentials with the efficient indifference that characterized all interactions with federal buildings. She overheard fragments of conversations that referenced operational budgets, deployment timelines, and threat assessments with the casual familiarity of people accustomed to dealing with matters of national security. Their body language and tone suggested that whatever had prompted this briefing was significant enough to warrant the highest levels of government attention and resource allocation. Elena settled into her plastic chair and opened her laptop, using the few minutes before the briefing began to review her recent research and prepare for whatever consultation might be requested. Her specialized knowledge encompassed not only formal linguistic analysis, but also cultural context, regional politics, and the subtle communication patterns that could reveal information beyond the literal meaning of words. Her background had been shaped by an unconventional combination of academic achievement and practical experience that began during her graduate studies at Stanford. Elena's doctoral dissertation had focused on code-switching patterns among bilingual communities in border regions, research that required extensive fieldwork in areas where academic credentials alone were insufficient for gaining access to authentic linguistic data. The research had brought her to the attention of federal agencies that needed cultural and linguistic expertise for operations in Spanish-speaking regions. What had begun as occasional consulting work had evolved into a parallel career that complemented her academic position while providing access to linguistic phenomena that would have been impossible to study through traditional scholarly methods. Elena's consulting work had taken her to environments where the stakes extended far beyond academic publication and tenure decisions. She had provided real-time translation services during sensitive negotiations, analyzed communication patterns for intelligence value, and served as cultural liaison in situations where misunderstanding could have diplomatic or operational consequences. The experiences had taught her to assess situations quickly and adapt her communication style to diverse audiences, while maintaining the analytical objectivity that was essential for accurate linguistic analysis. She had learned to function effectively in high-pressure environments, where precision and cultural sensitivity could determine the success or failure of critical operations. As more personnel filed into the conference room, Elena observed the social dynamics that governed seating arrangements and conversation patterns. The front rows were occupied by individuals whose uniforms and bearings suggested senior leadership positions, while the middle sections contained the tactical specialists and intelligence analysts who would be responsible for implementing whatever decisions emerged from the briefing. The informal segregation extended beyond rank and position to encompass different types of expertise and institutional affiliation. Military personnel clustered together with the easy camaraderie of shared experience and common training, while civilian intelligence analysts maintained the more reserved interactions characteristic of academic and bureaucratic environments. Yelena's position in the back corner placed her outside these established social networks, while providing an excellent vantage point for observing the group dynamics that would influence how information was processed and decisions were made. Her training in sociolinguistics had taught her to recognize the subtle patterns of inclusion and exclusion that shaped communication in institutional settings. The diversity of personnel present suggested that whatever situation had prompted this briefing crossed traditional jurisdictional boundaries and required coordination between multiple agencies and specialties. Elena counted representatives from at least 4 different military services, 3 civilian intelligence agencies, and several technical support organizations whose specific functions were less immediately apparent. The level of security classification required for attendance was indicated by the extensive credential verification procedures and the presence of armed security personnel at multiple points throughout the building. Elena's temporary access badge bore the highest classification level she had ever been granted, suggesting that the briefing would involve information that was restricted to a very small number of authorized personnel. As the appointed start time approached, the conversations gradually subsided, and attention focused toward the front of the room, where a podium had been positioned in front of the main display screens. Elena closed her laptop and prepared to take notes, uncertain about what role she might be asked to play, but confident in her ability to provide valuable insights based on her unique combination of academic training and operational experience. The morning sunlight streaming through the conference room windows illuminated the assembled personnel with the harsh clarity that characterized the intersection of academic theory and operational reality. Elena had learned to navigate this intersection throughout her career, but each new assignment brought fresh challenges that required creative adaptation of her specialized knowledge to unprecedented situations. Whatever had brought this diverse group of specialists together promised to test the limits of their collective expertise while demanding the highest levels of professional performance. Elena settled back in her plastic chair, ready to contribute whatever insights her background might provide to the critical mission that was about to unfold. Colonel Marcus Bennett strode to the podium with the measured confidence of someone accustomed to delivering information that could alter the trajectory of international relations. At 48, he possessed the lean build and alert posture that marked career intelligence officers who had spent years balancing desk analysis with field operations. His steel gray hair was cut in military regulation style, and the ribbons on his dress uniform reflected deployments to regions where American interests intersected with complex geopolitical realities. The colonel's reputation within the intelligence community was built on his ability to synthesize vast amounts of information into actionable intelligence, while maintaining operational security that protected both sources and methods. His briefings were known for their precision and clarity, qualities that had earned him the respect of both subordinates and superiors throughout his 26-year career. Bennett activated the main display screens with a remote control, revealing a map of Central America that highlighted specific regions in red, yellow, and green color coding. The geographic focus immediately captured the attention of every person in the conference room, as the highlighted areas encompassed some of the most strategically important and politically volatile territories in the Western Hemisphere. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Ladies and gentlemen, Bennett began, his voice carrying the authority that came from years of briefing personnel whose decisions affected national security. What you're about to hear represents the culmination of 18 months of intelligence gathering across multiple agencies and operational theaters. The information is classified at the highest levels, and the implications extend far beyond regional concerns to encompass direct threats to American homeland security. The colonel's opening statement created an immediate shift in the room's atmosphere. Conversations ceased entirely. Electronic devices were set aside, and every person present focused their complete attention on the presentation that was about to unfold. Elena noticed the subtle changes in posture and breathing patterns that indicated heightened alertness and professional anticipation. 3 weeks ago, Bennett continued, advancing to the next slide, our assets in Guatemala City intercepted communications that revealed the existence of a sophisticated smuggling network operating between Central America and major U.S. metropolitan areas. This is not another drug trafficking organization. The intercepted materials indicate coordination at levels that suggest state-sponsored support and objectives that extend beyond traditional criminal profit motives. The new slide displayed a complex organizational chart with photographs, names, and connecting lines that illustrated relationships between various individuals and groups. Elena recognized several of the Spanish surnames and could identify regional linguistic markers in the written communications that appeared as supporting evidence around the chart's periphery. Bennett's presentation style reflected years of experience in transforming complex intelligence into comprehensible briefings for audiences with diverse backgrounds and specializations. He moved systematically through the evidence while building a narrative that demonstrated both the scope of the threat and the sophisticated coordination required to address it effectively. The intercepted communications reveal planning for what they call Operation Ventana, Bennett explained, highlighting specific text excerpts on the screen. The literal translation is Operation Window, but our initial analysis suggests this refers to a time-limited opportunity rather than a geographic reference. The communications indicate that this operation involves the movement of high-value assets through established smuggling corridors during a narrow window of reduced American surveillance capabilities. Elena found herself leaning forward, despite her peripheral seating position, her linguistic training automatically analyzing the Spanish text excerpts that Bennett was displaying. The dialectical variations and specific terminology choices revealed information about geographic origins and educational backgrounds that could provide valuable intelligence about the network structure and membership. The Colonel advanced through several more slides that documented surveillance footage, financial transaction records, and intercepted telephone conversations that painted a picture of an organization with resources and coordination capabilities that exceeded typical criminal enterprises. The evidence suggested planning horizons that extended months into the future and operational security measures that indicated professional training and institutional support. The concerning aspect of this intelligence, Bennett continued, is not the sophistication of their smuggling operations, which we've seen before, but the nature of the assets they're planning to move. References in the communications to, quote, special materials and unique cargo suggest that this network is being utilized to transport items or individuals whose value extends beyond traditional contraband categories. The briefing room's lighting dimmed slightly as Bennett activated video projection equipment that displayed surveillance footage from multiple locations. The grainy black and white images showed individuals engaged in activities that appeared mundane but were obviously significant enough to warrant extensive documentation and analysis. Elena's position in the back corner provided an excellent view of both the presentation materials and the audience's reactions to the unfolding intelligence picture. She observed the subtle communication patterns between personnel who clearly worked together regularly, noting how information was being processed and evaluated through informal consultation and nonverbal coordination. Our concern reached critical levels, Bennett explained, when signals intelligence confirmed that Operation Ventana has been moved up to a timeline that places execution within the next 36 hours. The acceleration suggests either external pressure or the identification of a specific opportunity that cannot be delayed or replicated. The urgency implicit in Bennett's timeline created visible tension throughout the audience. Elena noticed changes in breathing patterns, shifts in seating positions, and the subtle activation of electronic devices as personnel began calculating resource requirements and coordination challenges that would be necessary for an immediate response. The operational challenge we face, the Colonel continued, is that our intelligence regarding this network's structure and capabilities remains incomplete. We know what they're planning and approximately when, but significant gaps remain regarding their precise methods, route selection, and most critically, the identity and nature of the special materials they intend to transport. Bennett paused to allow the implications of this information gap to register with his audience before continuing with the most sensitive aspects of the briefing. Elena recognized the presentation technique as a method for ensuring that complex information was properly absorbed before introducing additional layers of complexity and operational requirements. The geographic focus of their operations centers on a region where our human intelligence capabilities have been historically limited due to political sensitivities and cultural barriers. The local population maintains traditional suspicion of outsiders, particularly government representatives, and our previous attempts to establish reliable local assets have been unsuccessful. The slide display showed topographic maps and satellite imagery of mountainous terrain that appeared both beautiful and forbidding. Elena could see why conventional intelligence gathering would be challenging in such an environment, where local knowledge and cultural acceptance would be essential for effective operations. This brings us to the primary purpose of today's briefing, Bennett announced, his tone indicating that the presentation was transitioning from intelligence assessment to operational planning. The National Security Council has authorized a joint operation to intercept Operation Ventana and identify the nature of the special materials being transported. The mission requires immediate deployment of a team with specific capabilities that address both the operational challenges and the cultural barriers we've identified. Quote, "The tension in the room intensified as personnel realized they were transitioning from passive intelligence consumers to potential operational participants." Elena noticed the changes in body language and attention patterns that indicated mental preparation for assignment consideration and resource allocation discussions. Bennett advanced to a slide that listed mission requirements in stark, military terminology: cultural integration capabilities, advanced linguistic skills in multiple Central American dialects, proven ability to operate independently in remote environments, and demonstrated experience in sensitive intelligence gathering operations. As Elena read the requirements, she felt the familiar combination of professional interest and personal apprehension that accompanied recognition of her unique qualifications for specialized assignments. Her academic background and consulting experience had prepared her for exactly this type of challenge, but the compressed timeline and operational stakes represented a level of complexity that would test every aspect of her training and experience. The colonel's briefing was building toward personnel selection and mission assignment, but Elena's position in the back corner suggested that her role, if any, would remain peripheral to the primary operational planning. She prepared to contribute whatever insights her linguistic expertise might provide, while acknowledging that the critical decisions would be made by personnel whose security clearances and operational experience placed them at the center of the intelligence community's response capabilities. Director Patricia Hawthorne entered the conference room with the commanding presence that had propelled her through 3 decades of intelligence work to the highest echelons of the CIA's operational hierarchy. At 55, she carried herself with the controlled intensity of someone who had navigated congressional hearings, international crises, and bureaucratic battles, while maintaining the steely focus necessary for protecting American interests in an increasingly complex world. Her arrival shifted the entire dynamic of the briefing room. Conversations that had been continuing in whispered tones ceased immediately, and personnel who had been reviewing materials on their devices closed laptops and tablets to give her their complete attention. Even Colonel Bennett straightened perceptibly at the podium, acknowledging the presence of someone whose authority superseded his own in the operational hierarchy. Director Hawthorne moved with purpose toward the front row, where a seat had been reserved for her arrival. Her charcoal gray suit was tailored with the precision that reflected her attention to detail, and the subtle American flag pin on her lapel was the only external indication of her government service. Her silver hair was styled in a professional cut that framed features that could convey either diplomatic warmth or steely determination as circumstances required. "Colonel Bennett," she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority that made unnecessary any dramatic gestures or raised tones, "please continue with the personnel briefing. I want to review the team composition and ensure we have optimal capability alignment for this operation." Bennett nodded respectfully and advanced to the next slide, which displayed an organizational chart with photographs and credentials of potential team members. The presentation included detailed background information, security clearance levels, and specialized skills that had qualified each individual for consideration in the upcoming operation. Elena studied the displayed personnel information from her position in the back corner, noting the impressive credentials and extensive operational experience that characterized each potential team member. The academic achievements alone represented decades of specialized education, while the operational experience encompassed deployments to some of the world's most challenging environments. The primary team composition, Bennett explained, includes Agent Sarah Mitchell from Counterintelligence, who brings 15 years of experience in Latin American operations and advanced proficiency in Spanish and Portuguese. Her cover identity development and cultural integration capabilities have been proven through successful deployments in similar operational environments. The slide displayed Agent Mitchell's photograph and credential summary, revealing a woman in her early 40s with the confident bearing that characterized senior intelligence operatives. Her background included extensive education in international relations and demonstrated success in operations that required both cultural sensitivity and operational effectiveness under challenging conditions. Dr. James Crawford from Technical Operations provides our signals, intelligence, and communication capabilities, Bennett continued, advancing to the next personnel profile. His expertise in mobile communication systems and electronic surveillance will be essential for maintaining operational security while coordinating with support elements throughout the mission duration. Elena recognized the technical specialization that Dr. Crawford represented, understanding that modern intelligence operations required sophisticated coordination between human intelligence gathering and electronic surveillance capabilities. His credentials reflected the type of advanced technical training that enabled effective operations in environments where traditional communication methods were either unavailable or compromised. Director Hawthorne raised her hand slightly, interrupting Bennett's presentation with a gesture that indicated she wished to address the personnel selection process directly. Her intervention created immediate tension in the room, as everyone recognized that senior leadership involvement in detailed personnel decisions usually indicated either exceptional mission importance or significant concerns about operational capabilities. "Colonel," she said, her tone carrying the measured precision that characterized her approach to critical decision-making, "I want to ensure that our team composition reflects the highest standards of operational security and effectiveness. This mission cannot afford personnel whose qualifications are questionable or whose operational history includes any elements that might compromise mission success." The director's statement created a subtle but noticeable shift in the room's atmosphere. Elena observed personnel exchanging glances and making small adjustments in their seating positions that indicated recognition of the heightened scrutiny that Hawthorne's involvement would bring to every aspect of the operation. "The personnel selected for this operation," Hawthorne continued, "must represent the best available talent with proven track records in similar environments. We cannot rely on theoretical expertise or academic credentials that have not been validated through operational experience under stress." Elena felt a growing sense of unease as she recognized the implicit criticism of academic qualifications in the director's remarks. Her own background straddled the line between academic achievement and operational experience, but the classified nature of her consulting work meant that her practical capabilities were not fully documented in ways that would satisfy conventional evaluation criteria. Bennett continued through the personnel presentations, highlighting the operational experience and proven capabilities that had qualified each team member for selection. The emphasis on conventional military and intelligence credentials became increasingly apparent as the presentation progressed, creating an implicit preference for personnel whose qualifications could be easily verified through traditional evaluation methods. "The linguistic requirements for this operation," Bennett explained, "are particularly critical given the cultural barriers and regional dialects we expect to encounter. Our selected linguist, Agent Rodriguez from Defense Intelligence, has demonstrated proficiency in multiple Central American dialects through successful deployments in Guatemala and Honduras." Elena's expertise in exactly these dialectical variations was extensive, but her position in the back corner of the room seemed to preclude any consideration for active participation in the operational team. Her academic credentials and consulting experience were apparently viewed as supplementary rather than essential to the mission's success. Director Hawthorne stood and moved toward the side of the room where additional materials were displayed on secondary screens. Her movement created a natural pause in Bennett's presentation, while everyone adjusted their attention to accommodate her new position and whatever additional insights she might provide. "I want to emphasize," she said, addressing the entire room while maintaining her focus on the personnel displays, "that operational security for this mission requires personnel whose backgrounds can withstand the highest levels of scrutiny. Any individual whose qualifications or operational history includes elements that cannot be fully verified represents a potential security risk that we cannot afford." The director's emphasis on verifiable qualifications created an implicit criticism of personnel whose most significant achievements had occurred within classified operations that could not be discussed or documented through conventional channels. Elena recognized that her own background fell precisely into this category, where her most valuable experience remained hidden behind classification barriers. With respect to consulting personnel, Hawthorne continued, turning her attention toward the back area where Elena and several other specialists were seated. I want to ensure that we maintain clear distinctions between essential operational team members and supplementary support resources. This mission's timeline and security requirements do not permit the luxury of extensive briefings for personnel whose contributions may be peripheral to core operational objectives. The statement was delivered with professional courtesy, but its implications were unmistakable. Elena and the other personnel relegated to the backseating area were being categorized as non-essential resources, whose participation would be limited to specific consultation requests rather than integrated involvement in operational planning and execution. Elena felt the familiar frustration that accompanied institutional preferences for conventional credentials over demonstrated capabilities. Her linguistic expertise and cultural knowledge were directly relevant to the mission's requirements, but her academic affiliation and consulting status apparently placed her outside the core operational team that would receive comprehensive briefings and planning access. The marginalization was subtle but effective, achieved through seating arrangements, briefing procedures, and personnel categories that maintained professional courtesy while ensuring that non-essential personnel understood their peripheral status. Elena had encountered similar treatment in previous consulting assignments, where her expertise was valued for specific technical contributions but not integrated into broader operational decision-making processes. Director Hawthorne returned to her seat in the front row, signaling Bennett to continue with the briefing materials that would be restricted to essential personnel only. The transition was managed with bureaucratic efficiency that maintained security protocols while effectively limiting access to operational details that would determine mission success or failure. The operational timeline, Bennett announced, requires immediate deployment of the selected team with comprehensive briefings to begin within the next 4 hours. Personnel who are not designated for operational roles will be dismissed at this time to maintain security protocols and allow essential team members to focus on mission-critical preparations. The dismissal was delivered with professional courtesy, but Elena recognized it as the definitive end of her potential involvement in the operational aspects of the mission. Her expertise would remain available for consultation if specifically requested, but her role would be limited to peripheral support rather than integrated participation in the intelligence operation that matched her qualifications perfectly. As Elena gathered her materials and prepared to leave the conference room, she reflected on the institutional dynamics that consistently prevented full utilization of specialized expertise that didn't conform to conventional evaluation criteria. The mission would proceed without the benefit of her deep cultural knowledge and advanced linguistic capabilities, limiting operational effectiveness while maintaining bureaucratic preferences for easily categorized personnel qualifications. Elena was halfway to the exit when Colonel Bennett's voice cut through the conference room with the sharp precision of someone who had just experienced a moment of startling recognition. She paused at the doorway, her hand resting on the handle, as the weight of his stare seemed to burn into her back. The room had fallen into an uncomfortable silence, with essential personnel frozen in their seats, while non-essential consultants continued their quiet exodus. "Dr. Vasquez," Bennett called, his voice carrying an entirely different quality than the professional courtesy he had maintained throughout the briefing. "Please remain for a moment." Elena turned slowly, noting the sudden shift in atmosphere that had transformed the conference room from a routine dismissal procedure into something approaching a revelation. Colonel Bennett stood motionless at the podium, his eyes fixed on her face with an intensity that suggested he was comparing her features to some internal reference point that had captured his complete attention. Director Hawthorne looked up from the classified material she had been reviewing, her expression shifting from administrative focus to sharp curiosity as she observed Bennett's unexpected interruption of the dismissal process. The other personnel in the room maintained their positions while clearly sensing that something significant was developing beyond their immediate understanding. "Colonel?" Hawthorne inquired, her tone carrying the authority of someone accustomed to immediate explanations for unusual developments during classified operations. "Is there something we need to address?" Bennett moved away from the podium with deliberate steps, approaching a secure terminal that provided access to the most highly classified intelligence databases. His fingers worked across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, entering security codes and authentication protocols that would grant access to information restricted to only the highest levels of government clearance. Elena remained near the doorway, uncertain whether she should continue her departure or wait for whatever clarification Bennett seemed to be seeking. Her academic background had taught her patience during moments of uncertainty, while her consulting experience had demonstrated the importance of remaining available when government personnel indicated potential interest in her specialized knowledge. The secure terminal displayed a series of authentication screens before Bennett gained access to files that were clearly beyond the classification level of the current briefing. Elena could not see the screen contents from her position, but Bennett's reaction to whatever information appeared indicated that his suspicions were being confirmed in ways that would fundamentally alter the operational planning process. "Dr. Vasquez," Bennett said, his voice now carrying the weight of official recognition, "I need to ask you about your presence in Guatemala City during March of 2019. Specifically, your activities in the Zona 1 district during the week of March 15th through 22nd. The question struck Elena with the force of memories she had carefully compartmentalized for over 4 years. The Guatemala City assignment had been the most dangerous and consequential of her consulting career, involving circumstances that had tested every aspect of her training, while placing her in situations that extended far beyond conventional linguistic analysis. "Colonel," Elena replied carefully, recognizing that her response would need to balance operational security requirements with the honest communication that Bennett's tone suggested was essential. "I would need to review the specific security classifications and disclosure authorizations before discussing any activities from that time period." Hawthorne stood and moved toward the secure terminal, her expression reflecting the calculating assessment of someone who was beginning to understand that significant information was emerging that could affect current operational planning. Her movement created a subtle shift in the room's power dynamics as other personnel recognized that senior leadership was becoming directly involved in whatever revelation was unfolding. "Dr. Vasquez," Hawthorne said, her tone carrying the authority that came from decades of managing classified operations, "Colonel Bennett is operating under full disclosure authorization for personnel evaluation purposes. I need you to provide complete information about your activities during the time period he specified." Elena felt the familiar tension that accompanied moments when classified operations intersected with official scrutiny, requiring careful navigation between security requirements and operational necessity. The Guatemala City mission had involved circumstances that she was legally prohibited from discussing without proper authorization, but Bennett's access to classified files suggested that some aspects of her involvement were already known to intelligence authorities. "The Guatemala City assignment," Elena began, choosing her words with the precision that characterized her approach to sensitive communications, "involved linguistic analysis and cultural liaison services for a joint DEA-CIA operation targeting a cocaine trafficking network with suspected connections to terrorist financing operations." Bennett nodded, his attention focused on comparing Elena's verbal account with whatever information was displayed on the secure terminal. His expression suggested that her response was confirming details rather than providing new information, indicating that her role in the Guatemala operation was documented in classified files that she had not realized existed. "According to the classified after-action reports," Bennett continued, "the operation encountered significant complications when the primary target location was compromised and the extraction plan became inoperative. The reports indicate that mission success was achieved only through the intervention of a civilian consultant who demonstrated exceptional capabilities under extreme circumstances." Elena remembered the chaos of that March evening when carefully planned surveillance operations had dissolved into a desperate improvisation that had required every aspect of her training and several capabilities she had not realized she possessed. The mission had been her first exposure to life-threatening circumstances, where academic preparation met operational reality with consequences that extended far beyond scholarly publication or career advancement. The consultant in question, Bennett read from the terminal display, demonstrated advanced proficiency in multiple Guatemalan dialects, sophisticated understanding of local cultural dynamics, and exceptional decision-making capabilities under extreme stress. Her actions during the mission's critical phase enabled the successful extraction of vital intelligence while preventing the compromise of multiple ongoing operations. Hawthorne approached Elena with the focused attention of someone who was rapidly reassessing previous assumptions about personnel qualifications and operational capabilities. Her expression reflected the analytical process of someone accustomed to integrating new information into strategic planning while calculating the implications for current operational requirements. "Dr. Vasquez," Hawthorne said, The classified reports indicate that your performance during the Guatemala operation exceeded every standard for civilian contractor performance under combat conditions. The intelligence you secured during that mission has contributed to the disruption of multiple terrorist financing networks throughout Central America. Elena felt the weight of recognition that she had not expected to receive for work that had been classified at levels that prevented discussion or acknowledgement through conventional channels. The Guatemala mission had been the most significant achievement of her consulting career, but the security requirements had meant that her contributions remained invisible to most evaluation processes. The operation you participated in, Bennett continued, reviewing additional classified materials, resulted in the capture of financial records that revealed the connection between drug trafficking operations and terrorist organizations planning attacks against American targets. Your linguistic analysis of those documents provided the breakthrough that enabled subsequent operations across the region. The colonel turned from the terminal to address the personnel who remained in the conference room, his tone carrying the authority of someone who was about to make decisions that would fundamentally alter operational planning and personnel assignments for the current mission. "Ladies and gentlemen," Bennett announced, "I want to introduce Dr. Elena Vasquez, whose classified operational record demonstrates exactly the combination of linguistic expertise, cultural knowledge, and proven performance under extreme conditions that our current mission requires." The transformation in the room's atmosphere was immediate and profound. Personnel who had observed Elena's dismissal to the back corner now focused their complete attention on someone whose qualifications had been hidden by classification requirements that prevented conventional evaluation of her true capabilities. Hawthorne extended her hand toward Elena with the professional respect that characterized her interactions with personnel whose contributions had been validated through operational success rather than bureaucratic credentials. Her gesture represented institutional recognition that transcended the administrative preferences that had initially relegated Elena to peripheral status. "Dr. Vasquez," Hawthorne said, "I want to formally apologize for the personnel evaluation process that failed to recognize your exceptional qualifications. Your background makes you not just suitable for this mission, but essential to its success." Elena shook the director's hand while experiencing the profound satisfaction of receiving recognition that validated years of work that had remained hidden behind security classifications. The institutional barriers that had prevented acknowledgement of her most significant achievements were finally being overcome through official recognition of her proven capabilities. "The current mission," Bennett explained, "requires exactly the combination of skills that you demonstrated in Guatemala City. Your linguistic expertise, cultural knowledge, and proven ability to function effectively under extreme circumstances make you the optimal choice for the primary cultural liaison position." Quote, the personnel assignments that followed reflected Elena's elevation from dismissed consultant to mission-critical team members whose expertise would be essential for operational success. Her seating was relocated to the front row, her security clearance was elevated to match the mission's requirements, and her role expanded to encompass strategic planning responsibilities that utilized her unique combination of academic training and operational experience. The specialized briefing that Elena received revealed the full complexity of Operation Ventana and the sophisticated intelligence network that had been developed to counter its implementation. Her insights regarding linguistic patterns and cultural dynamics provided immediate value to operational planning, while demonstrating the importance of recognizing specialized expertise that existed outside conventional military and intelligence hierarchies. The mission preparation that followed utilized Elena's complete range of capabilities while integrating her expertise into coordinated team performance that addressed both the tactical requirements and cultural challenges that would determine operational success. Her participation transformed the mission from a conventional intelligence operation into a sophisticated cultural penetration that maximized the probability of achieving objectives while minimizing the risk of compromise or failure. The deployment phase demonstrated Elena's value as an essential team member whose contributions extended far beyond linguistic support to encompass strategic planning, cultural navigation, and operational coordination that enhanced the effectiveness of the entire team. Her background had prepared her for exactly this type of complex challenge, where academic knowledge intersected with operational reality in ways that demanded both theoretical understanding and practical capability. The successful completion of the mission validated the importance of recognizing exceptional talent that existed outside traditional evaluation systems while demonstrating that institutional preferences for conventional credentials could prevent effective utilization of specialized expertise that was essential for operational success. Elena's vindication represented not only personal recognition but also institutional learning that would influence future personnel evaluation processes and operational planning procedures. Her transformation from dismissed consultant to mission-critical personnel established precedents for identifying and utilizing specialized capabilities that had been concealed by classification requirements and bureaucratic barriers. The mission success demonstrated that effective intelligence operations required personnel whose qualifications transcended conventional categories while possessing the adaptability and cultural sensitivity necessary for navigating complex environments where academic preparation met operational reality. Elena's story became a reminder that exceptional capability often existed in unexpected places, and that institutional recognition of specialized expertise was essential for achieving operational objectives that demanded the highest levels of professional performance and cultural understanding. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.